moment is here, you can stop your search. It's Comics by Perch.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. I talked about this X-Men Green comic, and then it kind of blew up a little bit. A bunch of people looked at it and linked it, and it was one of those Marvel Unlimited titles. So I think for a lot of people, they didn't know this title existed, or it's kind of hovering around the periphery. And like I mentioned in that video, it was a bad comic. I mean, I'm very bothered by the thought process that went into that comic. And I've mentioned a couple times, other people have gone further with it around, Jerry Duggan and other things. I would love to interview Jerry Duggan. Absolutely. Now, there's zero chance of that happening, particularly after I said it was a terrible book that was sick and damaged. But I'd love to get his take of it. I absolutely would. No, this is not me begging for him to interview. But I mean, like, if I'm hoping somewhere, not with my channel, but somewhere, again, I'm happy to do it, but at least somewhere, I hope he comes on and says, hey, here's what we are going for. I'd like to hear a side of it. I would very happily listen to his side. And if one of you out there does get him to come on and give his side of it, let him give it fairly. And we will, and then you can assess what you think of it. But I hope he does get a chance to explain kind of what was going on there, because there's some very weird thinking. But in some of the pushback, because predictably, some people then came in and say, all right, Snowflake, with your pearl clutching and your internet words that I learned yesterday. Oh, you're bothered by this, are you? Well, what about the Punisher, huh? What about the Deathlock, huh? What about those characters? Were you as upset about the Punisher, or is it different because he's a cis white male? That's how those voices sound in my head. Yeah, there's a big difference, actually. And it's an easy one, and I think that question itself reveals that either the questioner didn't read the comic or missed out on some key components of it. Bear in mind, and the X-Men Green thing, basically, a mutant a nature girl who can talk to animals, gets frustrated because one of the animals gets killed via pollution, and decides to go out and murder a convenience store clerk and then a bunch of workers in an oil refinery in order to save the planet. Does just a shit job of it. I mean, doesn't really stop or help anything, and ultimately is captured by the X-Men. But the X-Men the entire time, like, man, I hate to do this. Oh, it's a poor girl is lost. She's I don't know. I mean, everybody, Quentin Quire, Magneto, Emma Frost is like, the only reason we're punishing you is because all the bad PR. I mean, that's it. That's the part that was disturbing. And the end of it basically features Doug Ramsey going, hey, be smarter next time. Don't be so noisy. Don't draw so much attention to yourself. And here's a weapon to help you out. We're just going to let you go free. That was the problem in the story. There were lots of very disturbing things as it went along. But the ending, which was basically, well, you're actually right in what you're doing. You just you just made too big a spectacle out of all that killing. You should have done it assassin style. That's the problem with the story. It would have been interesting if the comic would have ended with the X-Men universally saying, yeah, you broke our rules, you did this absolutely wrong, this is not who we are, who we stand for, you're going into the hole. And then Krakoa by itself, just the island, allowed her to escape. Because the island is, mentality of and Krakoa has been a villainous kind of entity in the past, would have been like, yeah, but I don't care about the people. I care about the event. That would have been a far better outcome to that story. But the fact that the other mutants were like, man, I wish we didn't. We got Quentin Quire going, I hate being a cop. Buddy, you're in X-Force, the Black Ops, police team, military team. What are you even talking about? You don't want to be a cop. I mean, anyway, but regardless. So how is this different from the Punisher? Well, simple. The Punisher is never portrayed, at least within the Marvel Universe, in that storytelling, as a good guy. Now, the readers may think he's a good guy. As the people reading the comic may say, I like vigilantes and all the rest. But you don't see like Reed Richards and Captain America going, well, I wish the Punisher would just kill people more quietly. Now, there have been instances where the Punisher has been too accepted into the Marvel Universe. I remember this is one of the things that Mark Miller for Civil War wanted to kind of prove. It's in the notes of the story pitch that he did, was that the Punisher would come and join Cap's team And Cap would be like, "Well, I guess we can work with you. I mean, we're getting our ass handed to us by Iron Man, so maybe we can." And then very quickly realizes, "No, you're a psychopath. You shouldn't. I don't care if we lose. You can't be on our team. You're the wrong person." And that's how it played out in Civil War. At times, Spider-Man or Daredevil have teamed up with the Punisher, and always they describe him as a lunatic, as a psychopath, as the wrong element, and it's almost always come back to bite them. During the 90s, Marvel tried to make more of an attempt to, I'll say, redeem the Punisher, but the Punisher was popular, so they were putting the Punisher into more things and all the rest. But the Punisher was never kind of glorified as, you know, doing the right thing. But there's another difference between the Punisher and what went on in this X-Men Green comic is the Punisher was he himself, in his narration, in his thought bubbles, in kind of the his own thinking, he knew he was in the wrong. He was not mowing down criminals and going, "I feel alive." Oh, in fact, the opposite. There's plenty of scenes where he mows down criminals and he's like, "I am dead inside. This is penance for me. I'm only this. I will burn in hell." I mean, these are the things he's telling himself. It's a dramatic difference, and to the reader, what they get is this is the you may still root him on because the people he's taken out are bad people, but he is in the wrong, very firmly, definitively wrong, and that's a huge distinction to what we've seen in this current comic. Deathlock is similar story. I mean, Deathlock again was not ever billed as this superheroic individual. It was billed as this broken individual, this person who is doing bad things. But the Punisher analogy is a much better one because it really shows. I mean, and again, the Punisher would go through kind of extensive effort of showcasing. It's like, I'm hunting down this criminal empire. Here's some people who've been doing some human trafficking. This is terrible and wrong. They need to be punished. These are the sickest of the sick and everything else. You didn't see the Punisher going, "I need to hunt down these human traffickers." And there's an Uber driver who, one of these traffickers used Uber. And because that Uber driver drove, one of these bad guys to a location, the Uber driver had no idea what was going on. But because the Uber driver drove him to that location, the Uber driver also has to die. You didn't see that. They did do a storyline, I remember, where the Punisher kind of lost his mind and started like shooting jaywalkers and things. And then that was, and again, he was proven as being absolutely out of his mind crazy. The difference being in this X-Men Green comic is that the characters were billed as being sympathetic. They were going out of their way to go, yeah, but she's got a point. I mean, maybe she's going a little too far, but I mean, who's going to help the environment? And that's you haven't seen that go on in the Punisher. That wasn't ever part of the narrative. That wasn't ever part of what was described off to the people reading it. I'm saying never casually. If you comb through every single issue of the Punisher, I wouldn't be surprised if there were some comics that glorified it more than others. But also keep in mind that both Marvel, the creator Jerry Conway, and others have repeatedly pointed out this isn't a good guy. The Punisher is not meant to be a superhero. The Punisher is meant to be a broken vigilante character, tortured. We can tell stories around that person, but at no point are we trying to say you should look up to this guy, because you shouldn't. That's the core difference in this comic, and it's this. Well, we have to see both sides. One of the grosser parts of X-Men Green is the fact that the victims, and in particular the very first one, which is a worker, it's unclear if he's a manager or just a worker, at the convenience store, that the convenience store whose bag Nature Girl found choking on, the turtle choking on the dyes. Here's a question. Nature Girl goes after the store, not the person who, I guess, threw the bag in the ocean. I don't know how that bag got from Las Vegas to the ocean to Krakoa is a whole other story. But the person who's guilty is not the civilian who bought something at that convenience store and tossed the bag on the ground. The guilty party is the worker in the convenience store. What if that worker was advocating for I don't know, more recycling in that place. What I mean, we don't know. She just goes and murders a guy, and then repeatedly in the comic says, "I don't feel bad about this." Again, another distinction from the Punisher. The Punisher would regularly be haunted by the his acts. Maybe not the victims. In fact, I believe there were some captions that would say things like, I sleep better at night knowing some of these killers are off the streets. But he was haunted by his actions. Nature Girl in that comic is getting visions validating her actions. In fact, the character, the convenience store worker, is is often portrayed to be selfish and cruel and petty. Again, somebody that she's never met. It's bizarre. The workers that she murdered and killed who were doing the pipeline, who she again had no remorse for, were shown to immediately want to go in and beat people with wrenches and just go immediately to violence because there wasn't reporters present. I mean, it's a bizarre story. But there are huge differences between the comics, between X-Men Green and the Punisher. It's not the same, not by a mile. So and again, biggest, most obvious, simplest answer: the Punisher was not portrayed to be even a little bit the good guy. The Punisher was still meant to be wrong. I mentioned this to somebody in a post, and they came back with, "Was like, well, a lot of people idolize the Punisher." Yes, but the comic made it very clear it was a bad guy. Now, keep in mind, there's lots of ways this could still work. You could have this could be a villain story, which it is. You could basically sell this as, there's a lot of ways you can do this. It doesn't have to be black and white in terms of of nuance to, is this a hero or not a hero. But I think to portray this as, if you got mad at this, but you didn't get mad at the Punisher, you're a hypocrite. No, they were portrayed and written and displayed extremely differently. And maybe it's just that we've lost the ability to have nuance. Maybe the kind of Punisher-like character is what Jerry Duggan had in mind. Quite possible. Maybe interesting that they're creating a character like that. Okay. Lots of ways this could be fine. But the way it came across to the consumer didn't accomplish that goal. And if the goal is to make something that is kind of analogous to the Punisher, Deathlock, characters like that, it didn't succeed. But hey, maybe there's another chance, because we're told X-Men Green will return. Apparently with Sauron and Curse and making a whole little eco-terrorist team. Sounds great. Anyway, that's the answer to that question. That's my perspective on it. You can still disagree. That's fine, but that's why I think they're completely different. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course, and thanks for listening.